Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Jesse Haugen, and I guess you could say I'm doing okay for someone who majored in unemployment. Mu- music composition. I meant to say. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about making music for podcasts, and specifically we're going to be talking about the music that I've written for this podcast called the Sheridan Tapes. Let's get into it. Okay, so podcasts, by no means a new industry, but certainly it seems in the last couple of years it is an exploding one. It feels like every day there are a bunch of podcasts coming live that are bringing amazing movies for your ears, really. You know, we want to be able to get in our car and we don't want to stop watching Netflix, right? We want to be able to plug our phone in, and basically we have movies that are just made for our ears so we can still watch the road as we drive, but we get to be a part of amazing, compelling audio dramas. And so we're seeing more and more that people are starting to make amazing content for podcasts. And amazing content means really awesome productions, really awesome stories, sound effects, sound design, but also, thankfully, music. People are looking for original music for podcasts. And this is really exciting because in some ways it's like everything that we've done. It's like writing music for TV or television or web or whatever, but in other ways it's a totally new sort of wild open frontier. It's something that hasn't been explored as much as I'm sure it's going to be in the next decade or so. And so this is an exciting opportunity for composers. How do you make music that can help tell these amazing stories just using audio? And that's our land, is audio. And so it is an amazing opportunity for us. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about how you might go about doing that, and specifically by looking at some work that I've done on a podcast called the Sheridan Tapes. So the Sheridan Tapes is created by a guy named Trevor Van Winkle. He reached out to me about March of this year and told me that he was going to be starting this long-form serial podcast with episodes that were going to come out weekly. And he wanted original music for that. So he actually wanted every episode to have a score, music that wasn't just licensed from some licensed library, but music that was written specifically for the show, something that would feel like the show and something that would help people to, really relate, and also that it would help tell the story. And so I, of course, was very excited about that opportunity, jumped on the opportunity to work with him and started writing the music. Now, because this was going to be weekly and episodes are about 20 to 30 minutes long, that's almost a television show's worth of music. So we knew that we weren't able, just due to my schedule, we weren't going to be able to basically sit down and score every single episode every single week. And so what we decided to do was make music in batches. So I would create some themes and some music that he could then take when he's making and editing each episode each week, and he could fit in and make work with the story that he was telling. Now, this posed its unique challenges, but also meant that I was basically able to just get started right away, and then he was able, once the show was up and running, to just fly through these and make them every single week. And I think what we came up with was something that was really cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but first, we actually have the immense honor of having Trevor with us today. I did an interview with him a couple days ago, so we're going to watch that now, and that's going to go over sort of what we wanted the music for the Sheridan Tapes to be, and how we sort of set out to accomplish that, especially from his perspective as the person who's taking this music and editing it to the scenes and actually making it work in each of the episodes. We'll talk about a couple other interesting things for you guys as well. And then after that, we'll come back and I'll actually show you one of the themes that I gave him. So one of the tracks that I wrote without any edits or anything, exactly as it showed up. And then an example of how he used that in one of the episodes. And hopefully this will be helpful just to see how we're making music for podcasts, and maybe give you some helpful tips on how you can do it yourself. So, all right, let's jump into that interview. All right, welcome, Trevor. Thanks so much for being here, man. Want to say hello to the good people of YouTube?
Hello, YouTube people. Nice to meet you. It's nice to step out of podcast land for a little bit and actually do some YouTube stuff again.
Right, they can see your face now. You don't get to hide.
I don't think this is a good idea.
It'll be great, man. Well, like I said, so excited to have you with us. We're talking about Sheridan Tapes music, season 1. I gave him a little bit of background to the show, our plan and what we were hoping for the music to be and how we actually went about doing it. But I thought it'd be interesting for them to hear from you, more specifically, since you were the one who was actually editing the music, the one who's actually applying it to the show. Just to hear your perspective on that and how you thought and felt that went. But before we get there, just for anyone who's interested, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to make audio dramas, sort of your life as a creator? I think people would be interested to know.
Yeah, I'll try and do that and keep it short and sweet. My name's Trevor Van Winkle, and I am the writer, creator, producer, and one of the leads for the Sheridan Tapes. Before that, I was writing, producing, and acting, and editing, and doing basically everything as you do with podcasts. It's another show called Homestead on the Corner. Just kept growing and growing. I kept having more and more success with that. I was able to meet Jesse and start working with him on the music on that, which really helped to elevate it to an even better place than it was before. And then eventually, the Sheridan Tapes got started out of that.
And then here we are.
Yep, here we are.
So yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing about that. Now, if we can talk about Sheridan Tapes specifically, I already shared a little bit about how we went about composing the music for this and how that was a little bit different. So, from your perspective, what were your hopes for the Sheridan Tapes music? And if there are any, what unique challenges do you think you face when you use music just in audio dramas in general?
Yeah. So what I was hoping it would kind of achieve in the show was, very much it wasn't too different from what the music for the standalone stories did, which is, enhance the emotion of the story and, enhance the feeling of the world and really bring forth a sense of, kind of, in a lot of ways, music is very helpful in audio drama to really place it very firmly in a genre when you don't have all the visual cues you normally do.
Yeah.
So like for any other type of visual medium would do that with an establishing shot. The music kind of functions in that way and brings you right into that world. But the difference between that and, an ongoing series, making sure it was, specific enough to kind of draw the listener in and get them, get them engaged with what's going on and, kind of bring, make sure they, feel the world they're in without it, but also, in some ways kind of general and multi-purpose enough that it, could be used over and over again throughout the series. Just in terms of, some of the challenges in general with using, music in an audio drama, it's very much, it has to kind of, exist alongside everything else. Unlike, a lot of, film scoring, you're able to, go really big and just let the music kind of carry the story for a little bit. Cause, again, it's a visual medium. You can just depend on the images and the music to tell the story. You can't really do that when you don't have visuals. So it has to coexist with, all of the actors' dialogue, the diegetic sound, all the layers of the soundscape. It has to fit into that without getting lost in it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like, as we kind of give more words to it, it's like music as setting. That is definitely like a unique challenge because it's a lot of heavy lifting while also, like you're saying, not getting in the way of all of the sound happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then let's think about how you actually were able to do that, because I made all of this music obviously thinking about these things and hoping to create music that not only was loopable and could be structured in such a way that it would sound cohesive, but also trying to make music that wouldn't just get ducked completely under everything because it's too big or there's too much going on. But I mean, that's one part of it. The other part of it is actually sitting down and fitting it in. So taking, I give you a palette of paint, but then actually going in and painting the picture. So my question to you is just as specific and technical as you can get. How did you actually approach doing that, making the score with the music that I gave you?
I mean, once I kind of had all of the tracks together, it was in a lot of ways kind of a matter of just feeling out what tracks worked best with what kind of moments, with what characters and what, emotions in these scenes. Finding those little moments where it can almost sound like it was specifically scored, where, it kind of, making
Yeah.
sure it doesn't, crescendo and come to a point in the middle of someone's just small talk.
Yeah.
Because it very much is, when it does that, it makes a point. You want to make sure you're making the point you actually want to make.
Yeah.
Especially when so many of these episodes are structured around literally just one character telling a story.
Right.
You have to find a flow, kind of, and it helps that I wrote the episode, so I knew where those inflection points should kind of be, but just making sure that was communicated effectively. And a lot of times there were points where I just found kind of things by accident that worked really well. I dropped a track and I'm like, oh, that actually really enhances this moment. If I just move it over here, okay, that's good. Okay, that's how I wanted.
And as you listen, don't forget to check out the Sheridan Tapes everywhere you can listen to podcasts. Trevor, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me, if even virtually.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Always great to see you, Jesse.
Yeah, likewise. And congrats on all the success with Sheridan Tapes up to this point. It's so cool to see, and even cooler to be a part of.
Thanks, Jesse. Really appreciate it. And I say this all the time, but we definitely could not have done it without your music. It brings so much to the show, and I'm so glad you're part of this team.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'll talk to you soon, Trevor. So thankful for Trevor being willing to do that and answer my questions, and hopefully that was some helpful insight for you guys on what it's like on his end to actually take this music and edit it together. But let's jump in now and let's look at the music that we're talking about. So what I've pulled up here is what we called the suspense theme. So this was sort of going to be general music that was going to be used for moments where things are leading somewhere. We have Anna's maybe trying to figure something out. The tension is rising. What this ended up being was a little bit more just sort of Anna's theme, who's the main character. It was sort of used that way throughout the show, and that has a tendency to happen when you're doing more of this licensed style music, is you'll find that you maybe create the music for one thing, and as you start to use it, it sort of starts to get its own identity. And as Trevor and I talked about, when you're thinking about music as setting, the music will start to say things and start to cue the audience into things, and you realize that a couple episodes in, and it seems that Trevor realized that this was really sort of the music that helped define Anna and helped the story feel like Anna and from Anna's perspective. And so that's how it sort of started to be used. But let's jump into it. So if you look at the session, I mean, compared to my other sessions, this is incredibly simple. And I knew that it needed to be simple because when you're making music for podcasts, you can't have a brick wall of music that's just tons of stuff going on, tons of counterpoint, really thick, big open orchestration. No, because this is only audio. So we have dialogue to fight with, we have sound effects to fight with. So our music needs to be able to exist alongside all of that. Yes, to say something, but also not to say so much that it just gets ducked or that it actually, and this is even worse, would get in the way. Because again, what we want to do with this is we want to help tell the story. Okay, so let's get into it. We start with this swelling string, something, a nice bed, something that everything can exist alongside. We have this sort of granular piano thing going on. So if you listen, it's really simple. We're not taking up a big space. It's an interesting texture. And then you want to say stuff in moments. So just little things. See, little impacts, little moments. We don't want that to start and continue. We just want to be able to call attention to things. Because Trevor could edit to any of this stuff at any point. Here's a melody. It's not a very cutty sound, it's a very round sound. It's something that you will hear in the mix, but it's going to kind of blend into the background in a nice way. And if you listen, we have this really consistent texture with the strings and the piano, and this is what's going to make editing really easy for Trevor. So at any point, he could jump to any of these impacts, he could just cut back to the texture earlier, and we're not going to notice. And I like loops like that. I don't like loops that are really obvious, like 4-bar things. I like things that sound more random. So when you cut to them, it sounds more interesting. It doesn't sound like looped music. It sounds like composed music. And then this is a suspense theme. We do want this to grow. And so we're going to introduce this kind of main theme. This is sort of like Anna's theme here in the piano. This is like an ostinato. Kind of a fun play between major and minor. So the first half of the ostinato is in minor, but then on the second half it comes back in major, which is sort of eerie and fun. So it gets a little more busy here, but I mean, even as I talk over this, you can see like there's a lot of space for dialogue. There's a lot of space for special effects, but we still have music that, if I shut up for a second, you'll notice is interesting. It's consistent, so it'd be easy to edit to, but it also is going new places. And then you kind of want to do things in layers. So here's a moment. It drops. Kind of drops down to like it did at the first part. So Trevor at any point could edit back to that. And then let's give him a climax. So this is maybe a little big for underscore, but we want him to have something if he does want it to get there. And it looks thick, but I actually, all of these strings, violins, cellos, and violas are all playing the exact same melody. So it's big without being thick, if that makes sense. And give him a nice out note. Yeah, that's a good, like, kind of the classic television, what's gonna happen? And it's nice to be able to have that sort of thing. But if you just look, like, let's say, he liked that it was building, but it didn't last long enough. You could do something like this. Cut to the beginning, and obviously this would sound a little bit better than me just clicking around. But actually, I can set up a loop. So let's do that. And let's say we don't want it to go out. We want it to last a little bit longer. So there's some rising tension. And then we want to cut back a little bit and have more moment. You hear that? It's like, it sounds like it's scored, and you can start to imagine if you start looping these things in a certain way and doing them a certain way, you could really create something that sort of ebbs and flows and comes in waves and sounds like it was written for each scene, but actually it's just music that's looped. And I mean, we could take it even further back. So let's say instead of exploding again at the end, we want to cut it back, but we want to cut it back even longer. Boom, we're right back there. Okay, and then let's say we want to actually get out of this little ostinato. We could cut it back to something like this. See, I'm literally just creating this on the spot using loops. But, I mean, I could almost sit here and do this for hours and just sort of show you how, because of the way that this is written, you can sort of take anything and send it anywhere and it's going to sound okay. And the main reason that works is because of these sustained strings and then this granular piano. This texture is everywhere. I mean, you go to any point in the track, even the bigger stuff, and it's there. And so what that allows your ear to do is your ear is going to pick up on all of that happening all the time, and it's going to make it all feel really cohesive. And then the other thing is that we put lots of like impact moments in. So not huge stuff, but regularly throughout we have like this, these low piano hits. And what those do is they really help us to get grounded so you can make it feel like things are cut on the beat. So hopefully that's interesting. Let's hear how Trevor sort of put that together. I actually think this is an example where this sort of played mostly just kind of directly out. I don't think there's very many edits here, at least not that I can hear. But this will show you what it sounds like as it webs in and out of dialogue. And the other thing is, even though we want to create this to be loopable, we do want to tell a story. And so as we listen through that, I hope that you heard that this grew. It sort of had a natural, ramp. Yes, it went down at points and it sort of did this, but the general trajectory was upwards and onwards. And then that's going to come across when he lays it under dialogue. So this is from episode 14 of the Sheridan Tapes. Let's just see this example of how the music worked along with it.
By the time they dropped me off at my hotel, we'd all formed a silent pact to never mention that night again.
So here it is, it comes in.
I didn't even want to think about it, especially after the accident happened later that.
Right, this is our theme.
So for a while, I tried to forget it ever happened.
So these little moments,
and when
right?
I did remember, I reassured myself with the thought that whatever I'd encountered was probably dead. I definitely felt bones breaking when I hit it with that branch, but I still kept an eye on the place, and in 2010 I saw a news article that a bunch of campers had gone missing in the park on the same night an unexpectedly vicious thunderstorm appeared over Lake Ontario.
It's subtle. It's this round
Their bodies
melody.
washed ashore a week later, their faces still locked in expressions of abject terror.
It allows our melody
that definitely
to come
got my
through,
attention,
but not to get in the way
but I couldn't
of Anna's
be sure
narrative.
it was really the creature that killed them. They could have just gone out swimming and been washed out by an undercurrent. And to be honest, I really didn't want to go back there. I may chase things like this normally, but whatever I encountered that night is in a league of its own. I tried to forget about it all over again.
Again, that
I
melody
did a pretty good
just slightly
job
cutting
until
through
in
the texture.
2015, I saw a new post on one of the cryptid message boards I follow labeled Beechwood Monster.
See, it's background, but
it was from a poacher who'd been
saying
hunting near the
something.
camp when he found one of his snares triggered and bloody, but empty. Figuring another animal had stolen
Here's
his
that
catch,
rising
he
sonata.
searched the area for a few minutes before stumbling upon what he described as a huge black beast on two legs, with a pale white face and no visible eyes. The creature noticed him as soon as he saw it, and the poacher, terrified, emptied his rifle into its chest. The creature fell, and the poacher claimed he couldn't feel its pulse. He tried to run back to his car and get a camera, but by the time he returned, the body was gone, and he was only able to get a picture of the massive bloodstain where it fell. He thought it was a Bigfoot, of course, but I knew what it was, as well as how foolish it was of me to assume it was dead, or even that it could
change
die.
In the narrative, now we're back down
I
to
may
that
have been
second
younger
build.
then, but I should have known better. So here I am, 2 years after I first read the post, because that's how long it took me to
This
get
is no
everything
longer
I
a
needed
story of
together.
what happened. This is something happening
I'm sure
now,
as hell
right?
not
So
going
this
to
is
get
the
caught
bigger
unprepared
build.
and unaware this time. That's for damn sure.
So moment 4 music. See how Trevor cut away the dialogue on this bigger moment of music. It's leading us into what's gonna happen. This is her little scanner looking for a monster. And then our outer sting. What
Gotcha.
happened? And there it is. So as you can see, there are examples where basically the whole arrangement sort of works. And obviously this part of this is because Trevor is editing to this. So he's making choices based on what's going on. But at any point, he could extend or expand any one of those like he did at several times in the Sheridan Tapes. And it'll still work and it'll still feel like score. So I hope that that's interesting for you. It is, again, it's a very simple medium, but it's by no means any less impactful. You know, this movie for your ears idea, which I really, really, really am falling in love with, is something that is a really amazing opportunity for composers, because I think there's just going to be more and more people looking for original music for these shows. And Sheridan Tapes is an example of that. It's really cool. At the time of filming this video, Sheridan Tapes, like I said, it only started this year. It just finished season 1. It already has over 100,000 downloads. And the popularity and the interest in the show is growing as we head into season 2 in January. And so it's just really exciting to see people engage with it in such a meaningful way, and also just to be a part of something like that that feels really it feels like scoring anything else. I mean, these are interesting, dramatic, complex stories. It's just we don't see anything. So we're being visual in the way that we talk about things and in the way that our music helps set the scene for the story to take place. So I hope that's interesting for you guys. You should definitely try to write some podcast music yourself. There's tons of podcasts out there that don't really have much music. You could download those and, you know, maybe see what it's like to try to score something just to dialogue, or you could record an audio drama of yourself and actually see what it's like to try to write music that doesn't get in the way but can help just through audio take you to places that maybe visuals normally would. You know, how do you create drama and intrigue and setting just using music? Being simple, but also being able to tell a story, being able to say something with your music. So give that a go. Also, you should check out a bunch of the really awesome podcasts. Check out the Sheridan Tapes. It's anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's available. Season 1 just wrapped. It's an awesome opportunity to binge it, get caught up before Season 2 starts in January. And I hope that you guys really enjoy it. You're awesome. Thanks so much for watching. Tons of videos coming up. I just finished a Christmas album, so I'm going to be diving into some of that. I promise it's some interesting Christmas music. It should be fun for you guys to check out. Talk a little bit about production tips and how that goes. But until then, you guys are the best. Again, so thankful to be doing this YouTube thing and to be getting so much awesome interaction for you. If you have questions about writing music for podcasts or for anything else, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Like I said, tons more content coming, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. You're the best. See ya. I'm gonna commit to that outro. I'm not gonna record a new one. Peace!